Hey guys, so what we're going to be doing today is a little bit of a review, but we're going to take it up a little bit from what we've already explored in the past, and that is how to use a calculator to find the appropriate table to graph a quadratic. We already know how to graph quadratics, but this is more of an important skill because we're going to get into real life quadratic problems where you're going to really have to know how to adjust your calculator and manipulate the different functions in order to answer most of these questions. Okay. Now, one thing that Delta Math is going to say today is make sure that when you get a table, an appropriate table, or graph the quadratic, you're going to have to make sure you include the roots and the vertex. So just so you know, after we plug everything in our calculator, we're going to have to make sure we find the roots. The roots are just where your y is 0. So in each of these tables, you'll notice they're included. And then the vertex. The vertex is just a fancy way of saying turning point. Now your turning point is going to be in the middle of your table. If you don't put it in there, we don't get points of symmetry or that rainbow effect like we talked about back in the day when we had our absolute value graph and our quadratic. So make sure that those 2 points, and it's going to be there because we're going to have to make sure we get that in our table anyway. But I just want you guys to start hearing these vocab words, and we're going to be using them a lot. So again, roots are where the y is 0, and on the graph, it's actually where they cross the x-axis. Those are your roots. And your vertex is just your turning point. It's that point that the graph increases or decreases to get to. All right, so let's move on to the first, the introduction. So just remember, when you are graphing a quadratic, you can be given it in 3 different forms. The first one is standard form, which you guys remember from solving a quadratic using the quadratic formula. The vertex form, if it looks, you might kind of see it. It's a little bit like completing the square, which it is. That's where it's derived from. And your intercept or root form is just the form in which you see your factors. Now remember, we did set equal to 0 factor solve, and those answers we got were really our roots. So now we're going to start seeing connections between what we just did back the past few weeks to now in graphing. So these are things we've explored, but now all we have to do is plug them in our calculator and find appropriate tables. So when you're graphing, you just need to find those points of symmetry. Now remember, our points of symmetry are just fancy way of saying that rainbow effect. So hopefully you guys remember those words. Okay, and we're going to go through a couple examples today to help you guys get there. All right, so for example, when you graph g of x equals x squared, you would put it into your calculator, you'd get your table, and then when you graph it, you should get a nice symmetric graph. Remember, we get that rainbow effect here, okay? It's those points of symmetry. All right, so let's try one together. So in this particular question, it says graph y equals x minus 1 squared minus 9. Now, I wrote at the bottom, just be sure to include your vertex and your roots. Again, we're going to be purposely making those points in there anyway, so you don't really have to worry about it too much, but I just want to keep reusing those words. So your first thing is you push y equals, you plug in the function x minus 1, close parentheses, square minus 9. Okay? Now you graph it just to see what it looks like. It's so important to just explore what's happening. So if you look there, it's nice, it's symmetric, it's a U. Now we're going to get our table. So when we get our table, we do second graph to get our table. Now, our goal is to find points of symmetry or the rainbow effect, which will include our vertex and our roots. And if you notice right here, -8, 0, -8, and 2, -8 are already points of symmetry. And it's already wrapping around that 1, -9. So we know that 1, -9 is our vertex or our turning point where the graph is going to turn around and go up or down, depending upon how it's graphed. And so I know my other points of symmetry have to be up this way. So I'm going to use the up arrow to get more. And you'll see that they start generating points that are matching. We have our zeros, we have our -5. So those are the points you really want to go. And you're just going to keep going until that top number and the bottom number match, which is at -416 and 616. So that's a great table. You don't need to copy down the whole one. You just want to make sure you're including the vertex, which is that turning point, 1, -9, and that those roots, which are 2, 0, and 4, 0. Now you really only need 7 dots to graph. So I'm just going to actually, you can start with -3 if you want. It's no big deal, but don't include the -4, 16, or the 6, 16, because it can't even be graphed on this graph. All right, so I'm going to start at -3, 7, -2, 0, -1, -5, 0, -8, 1, -9, 2, -8, 3, -5, 4, 0, and 5, 7. Okay, so make sure you get these points down if you didn't do so already. So pause the video. And just remember, we do include the vertex. Just going to write it there so you keep seeing that word over and over. And our roots. So those are the 3 important points you're going to need to have when you're graphing on Delta Math today. Okay? So we're going to plot those points, -3, 7. So you go left 3, up 7. -2, 0. Go left 2, up 0. -1, -5. Left 1, down 5. 0, -8. 1, -9. 2, -8. 3, -5. 4, 0. And 5, 7. Okay? Now your last step is, just remember, you got to connect it, extend through the last points. It's not a V, it's a U, so it should have some curvature to it. This is really bad, I'm sorry. Have the arrows at the end and label your equation. Label your graph. Y equals x minus 1 squared minus 9. Okay? So that's how we're going to be graphing. Now we're going to try the next one. So pause the video, make sure you get all of this down. That's like the most simplistic one. Now we're going to go on to number 2. It's a little bit more complicated looking, and we're going to have to do a little bit more research here, okay? So the first thing is we're going to graph y in y equals. We're going to plug in -0.5 parenthesis, x plus 3, close it, and then x minus 4 and close it, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to graph it. Now remember, when we multiply by a negative, it flips it. We talked about that already. And it's a 0.5, so it makes it wider. 2 things what we already talked about. And now we're going to go to our table and look for our points of symmetry. So we press second and graph. Ooh, shoot, look at that. You could see the points of symmetry, but I don't see a vertex. Why not? You'll see that you have your 0, our roots, which we need. We have our 3, our 5, our 6, 5, 3, 0, -4. Those are good points, but I'm missing that one where it wraps around. So that just means it's in between these 2 points. And because it's a symmetric graph, I know it's in the middle of 0 and 1, which is 0.5. Now, some of you may not know that. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can find your vertex using the calculate button, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to press second trace, which is calc. Now, when we graph this, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it turned up and then down. So that means there's a maximum point here. So you're going to do second, and you're going to go down to maximum. It gets to the highest point on the graph, and press enter. Okay? Now, what you need, something is called a left bound, which is to the left of the maximum point. And what you do is once you kind of get it to the left of it, you're going to press enter. And it's giving you kind of like a guide. And then you're going to go all the way to the right of your maximum. I'm just going to go a little bit more over, just in case to be safe. Press enter. And what they're saying is, do you think it's in between those two, that space? And you're saying yes. So you press enter. And what they did is they gave you the point right there. That's the maximum point, which is your vertex. That has to go in your table. So right now, you're going to make your table, and then you're going to put in the middle, and I'm going to box it out so I know to get some points above and below. is 0.5, 6.125. That has to go in your table, okay? So that's important. Now, the next thing is we're going to copy the other points down in the table like we had. Now, some of you we did talk about how to adjust the table and go by 0.5s. You can do that. It's fine. But I really like using this function as well. All right, so let's go to our table, and then we're going to do 0 goes above it, 1 goes below it, and that's 6, 6. And then I'm going to go up a little bit. I'm going to go to -1, 5. And then the 5 down below is 2, 5. And remember, what we need are 7 points. So far we have 5. But I need to include my roots. So I'm going to actually need to put more. So I have -2, 3, 3, 3. And then I need my -3, 0. And my 4, 0, because I need those 0 points. Okay? Now your last step is just to graph it. So we're going to start -3, 0. Plot your point. -2, 3, go over 2, up 3. -1, go up 5. 0, 6. And now I'm going to have to just go halfway up. I'm going to do it in a different color so you could see. You're going to go halfway over and up to 6.125, which is just a teeny bit above the line. Okay? Now I'm going to go back over and I'm going to plug in 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 3, 4, 0. Okay? And now you're just going to connect those dots. Make sure it's curved. Go extend through. And put arrows. And then you're going to label it. F of x is equal to -0.5 times x plus 3 times x minus 4. Okay? So that's the most challenging one you're going to get. Just knowing how to adjust to get your points, get that vertex. Remember, this is your vertex. And these are your roots. So you need to have those when doing your Delta Math today. Okay? Good luck. And if you have any questions, you guys can message me. So just remember, you're going to need to do next is try the 2 on your own problems on your own. Make sure you get the answers right. And then if you didn't, you can go to the second video where I guide you through them. But just remember to complete the 4 problems on the Delta Math, okay? Good luck and message me if you have any questions.